20th century designer Dahl Collings had a way of embracing modernist design principles and theories that paved the way for contemporary designers, such as Alice Lindstrom, to develop these ideas further. Collings practiced modernism with her husband Geoffrey Collings all over the world in the early to mid-20th century. Throughout this film, we'll be taking a closer look at the way she utilised modernist elements in her design work, as well as the way social, cultural and political issues impacted the way she designed. Alice Lindstrom is a contemporary Australian designer who uses a similar approach to her designs in terms of materials. This film will explore the design connection between these two designers and discuss how the role of women designers has changed in recent years. Dulcie May Wilmot was born in Adelaide, South Australia in 1909 and lived to be 78. She got the name Dahl from her husband Geoffrey Collings as a term of endearment. She was a successful painter, commercial artist, graphic and exhibition designer, illustrator, costume and textile designer, photographer, and documentary filmmaker through the mid-20th century. She got her education at the East Sydney Technical College, as well as the J.S. Watkins Studio Art School, learning design and painting. In 1933, Dahl and Geoffrey married. He is also a successful modernist designer who worked as a commercial artist, graphic designer, filmmaker and photographer. Not long after marriage, the two began co-signing most of their works. 1936 was the year the pair decided to move to the UK, and it is where they picked up a lot of their modernist techniques. They returned to Sydney only 2 years later and began introducing this new style to Australia. In 1940, their hard work began to pay off, and they were awarded 4 ACIAA awards. Some more awards to note are for her film The Dreaming that was produced for Qantas about Aboriginal art, and her Opera House film Job number 1112 that she was awarded a silver medal for. As previously mentioned, living in London in the 1930s is where Dahl learnt a lot of the modernist qualities that shine through her work from that point on. She has been quoted saying, "The simplest ideas always prove to be the best," in the article that she wrote titled Creating Store Personality Through the Window. This quality of simplicity can be identified through her work, and this untitled piece from 1955 of hers is a perfect example of the modernist principles that she chose to apply to her personal design, even after being out of London for over 10 years. Modernism is known as one of the most impactful movements in design history. Not only did it completely evolve design as we knew it, but it also became a way of life. Modernization came about because of the First World War. The poverty, the lack of resources, and the mindset of wanting to move forward is what pushed modernism from a trend to a movement. The people who had just been through a life-altering war wanted a fresh start. They used modernity as a way of moving forward and not looking back. Modernization was adapting to the new needs of the time. New materials and new uses of old materials were constantly sought by Dahl. Even in using a wide range of materials, she always kept them true to form. In her commercial works, she used the new materials as a way to keep her work exciting and innovative for her audience. She practiced a lot with textiles, often creating geometric designs with a minimal use of colour. The use of textiles is most likely due to the misogynistic society of the time that felt if women were going to design, they should be using textiles. She didn't have as many opportunities to work with other mediums. Dahl's works often displayed different elements of modernism, such as simplicity, geometric forms, and even modern themes. Anti-historicism was also a predominant quality of her work. We can see from her works that she often uses a very limited colour palette and incorporates a lot of geometric shapes and lines. This piece still incorporates themes of modernism using a very different approach. Often, when she worked in partnership with companies, she would use collage as her medium of choice and did not necessarily stick to the strict rules of the universal design language. Instead, the themes of this piece are what relate it to modernism. It is advertising for the Orient Line, a cruise ship company. Having the ability to freely travel across the ocean for leisure was a very modern concept. Dahl was one of the very first Australian women to begin the slow process of introducing modern art and design principles to Australian industry, says Anne-Marie van den Ven. She used her platform and experience to promote good design for social change. She was inducted into the Design Institute of Australia's Hall of Fame in 2019, which shows not only the relevance she still has today, but also the impact she made as a woman in design in the 20th century. She participated in spreading and creating the universal design language that is modernism, which helped change and shape every aspect of design forever. The magazine The Home had a huge impact on the way modernism was received, as well as giving Collings much more exposure. Dahl has been quoted saying, The best results were almost always achieved with a strict economy of means. The Great Depression played a massive role in design in the 20th century, and it was evident through the simplicity of design. This kind of aesthetic was something that had never been seen before, and it truly shaped the new age. The use of raw materials and lack of ornament on design was a result of a poor society. People could not afford to buy elaborate products, and designers embraced this new age. Another factor that greatly affected Dahl's career as a designer was the misogynistic way of life. Men were put to work to provide for their family, and it was the woman's responsibility to take care of her home and children. Dahl did not confine to these ideas and instead pursued design alongside her husband. Although she was just as talented as her male counterpart, he was more celebrated than her, and it is still evident today through the amount of readily available information on Jeffrey versus Dahl. Alice Lindstrom is an Australian designer still practicing today who has a background in philosophy. She has said that she is very much inspired by strong female role models and often draws on them for inspiration in her works. Her designs often feature women as the subject matter, and visually, these works can be compared to the collage designs Dahl Collings created in the 20th century. Dahl and Alice both practiced design, using collage as a medium, however, doing so in very different ways. Michael Bird says, "In the later 20th century, much work in collage seemed more concerned with the matter and texture than design." We can see that Collings created texture by incorporating other elements as well as physically making the textures on her paper. Lindstrom, however, has a very different approach. She paints all of her textures so that her pieces appear less three-dimensional and have less of a cut-and-paste feel to them. The piece Winter in Melbourne by Alice Lindstrom focuses on the kind of fashion you could expect to see on a typical cold winter's day in Melbourne. The home cover by Dahl Collings also features a female in a cold winter setting. Dahl Collings played a major role in the modernist movement that Australia experienced. Women played such an important role in design in the 20th century because they paved the way for all women that get to work in this field today. They were innovative, fearless, and talented.